Universe, thank you for stopping by here at Comic Rema, where I talk about books and records. And for this video today, I'm going to be entering a contest to MIKEGUITARPLAYER07's 300 subscriptions contest. He asked 3 questions, and we're going to go ahead and just jump into this. So the first question he asked is to show an album that is played a lot in your turntable. Well, I don't have an album that I can think of that's been played the most in my turntable, because there's always new stuff to be listening to, and there are just so many recent arrivals and I have not gotten into. But I will show a couple of recent spins that have been on my turntable for the last couple of weeks. Definitely the last month I've been spinning this record several times. Even one of the records, I even was streaming it digitally when I was not in this room here, because I was just enjoying that album so much. So let me go ahead and show you the 2 albums that I'm thinking. The first one is Alan Parsons' project, I, Robot, and this is an amazing album. In my opinion, I believe this album was just ahead of their time. The album cover is by Hypnosis. If you're familiar with Hypnosis, they've done some amazing, iconic covers like Pink Floyd's covers, and they designed this cover as well. I believe the photography is done by somebody else, by Hypnosis. Designed the album cover, and it's a gatefold, and the gatefold inside is supposed to mimic the robot here. It took me a while to kind of see the robot here, and it's the inside, it's supposed to mimic the same way the robot is looking. Like I said, this is an amazing album from start to finish. 1 or 2 of the songs on here, it's kind of sounded like filler songs, but they still kind of worked well with the whole album. What's interesting about this album as well is that I talked to science fiction writer Isaac Asimov, and he actually gave them permission to use the concept for the album. But afterwards, they had a little bit of issue because Asimov had done a contract with somebody else in previous years, so they kind of switched it up. But they still remained, they still kind of kept a little bit of the concept that was based on the trilogy of Asimov's robot works. Amazing album. I must have heard this album maybe at least 20 times in the last month. And the song that was really repeating is the ending track of this album, which ends with Genesis chapter 1 verse 32. It kind of gives you a sense that at the ending of this record, man and machine kind of create like a new creation, because the first book of Genesis is completely about creation, but it ends with verse 31, and this song is verse 32. So if you're not familiar with Alan Parsons' project, definitely check this album out and sample the last song if you kind of want to get a feel of what this album sounds like. Second album is this band Kansas. They've had a few pop hits that they've been really famous for, but this album is just rocking from start to finish. I really like the drums on this. I love the speed, and I just love the guitar work in this album. So I've definitely spun this more than once this month, because I was just really satisfied. Even my wife was a little bit amazed, because she liked some of the instrumentation on here, and she asked a couple of questions while this was playing. So that's definitely always a great thing when your wife is also enjoying the music that you are playing. The next question that Mike asked is to show the album or albums that you acquired when you first started record collecting. I've been record collecting for almost about 20 years. I started right at the end of high school. Before that, I've only had tapes and CDs. CDs which I still collect. But around the end of high school, I decided to start collecting records. There was a pawn shop really close to my house around the block. So I took some money that I had saved up from the year prior of working at Baskin-Robbins, and I went ahead and bought a turntable, which it ended up being about $60. And I went home and I installed it in my Iowa stereo. During that time, I also started finding some really great records, great finds, and let me show you the stuff that I found. Here are a few of the records that I found during that first year buying records. And the first one is my favorite band of all time. I was able to find this Pink Floyd Relics album on the Harvest label. I was able to find this Foreigner record. And this one, I still have the price tag on it from June 7th, 2001 at $1.99. I believe most of these other ones I got for $1. I found this Beatles album. This is actually a UK pressing from 1980, and it's on the Parlophone label. I also picked up this Percy Faith strings. The only reason I picked this one up is because they had Beatles songs on this one. Another album that I acquired during that time is Smash Hits by Jimi Hendrix. It is in great condition. However, it does not have the poster. If you see on here, it says giant poster enclosed. No poster in this one. The next question that Mike asked was to share a story while we were buying a record or doing our vinyl collecting or vinyl digging. Here, a quick story about an incident that happened maybe about a year ago. My wife was asked to go preach at a retreat, and this was going to be in Idlewild, California, which is about 2-hour drive from where we were living. We hopped in our car, we drove to this place that was gonna take 2 hours, and it ended up taking about 5 hours for us to get there. Unfortunately, I believe there were either some road construction or rain that had caused some damage in the roads. So some of the alternate routes were closed. So we continued to drive. Our GPS kept directing us to different routes, and the drive ended up being 5 hours. So we finally get to this place and we have dinner. I forgot to mention that at this time we had our baby with us, and he was about 8 to 9 months. Well, at nighttime, when it was time to go to sleep, they gave us a cabin. It was a small cabin where it had a sleeping room with a sofa and a window, and then it had a small section for the bathroom. So we're getting ourselves ready to go to bed. We also bathe our son every night. So I get the water ready. My wife comes in with the baby to bathe him. I go back to the sleeping room, I lie down on the sofa, and a minute after I lie down with my feet up in the air, I start feeling movement. Everything starts shaking. I'm thinking maybe I have mareos or something. And I get up, moving from side to side. So I run over to my wife and my kid, and we huddle up and wait for the earthquake to be over. After that, we decide, my wife and I take a few minutes to decide if we're gonna bathe him or put him down. We decide to bathe him real quickly and try to put him down, and while one of us stays up in case there's an aftershock and we need to get out of there. Next morning, we go on about our day. We have breakfast, we have lunch in the afternoon. So on our way back home, we decided to stop by one of the local town just to kind of check it out and visit, since we don't know that town in that area. So we're visiting different areas. We visit an ice cream area, a little nursery where they have different plants. and then there's a vintage theater there. So I start asking the stores that we were going in, is there a record store in town? So one of the town members tells me, yeah, there's a record store up the street. We end up going to this place. So I'm thinking it's like a small town record store, right? It's actually a home. And once I go in there, it is full of records. There's a lady in her late 60s, early 70s, smoking, playing some records in there, and maybe a couple of customers. So I walk in there, my wife stays outside with the baby, and I start finding stuff that I would really like to have. But the only thing is that these records have no prices. And if you know, when those records don't have any prices, these records are going to be expensive. After a few minutes, my wife comes in, starts kind of talking in charge, and gets to hold the baby. My wife ends up finding a record that she wants to listen to. So I ask her to put it back because that record is probably going to be $50. She goes ahead and asks the lady, and true and behold, the record was $50. But the lady was so nice, and she liked my wife, that she went ahead and went to go play the record that my wife was interested in. So that was pretty cool. So I definitely knew I was not going to take home stuff that I really wanted. However, I was looking through a section, and I was able to find some stuff that I was able to bring home. So one of the records that I found is one that I've never come across. This is Andre the Crouch and the Disciples, live in London. This is a gospel record. It's a 2-record set. And I've never ever seen this record. And I was able to get this one for about $10. So it was definitely a great find for me. I was also looking through their soundtrack section, and I was able to find this one that I never see. It's Ghostbusters album. And I also found this promo copy of the Star Trek soundtrack. And here go the OG guys right there. So definitely was a memorable weekend, and I was able to pick up 3 records that I was really glad to pick up during that time. So that's my story. If you enjoyed it, Mike, congratulations on your 300 subscriptions. Congratulations on getting your master's degree. You're doing a great job with your channel. Awesome collaborations, and just want to wish you well. God bless you, and God bless everyone else watching this video. Be in peace with yourself, be in peace with others, and I'll see you on the next one. God bless. This is the update on the potatoes. This is about a month in, I believe. As you can see, we got some big stems here. I planted some here, so I'm not sure if it's not growing or if it's going to take a little bit longer time for those potatoes to pop out. So amazing.